Today on the pod, you're going to hear an amazing and vulnerable story of a mom and a son overcoming the effect of sexual abuse. I just think this openness is so amazing, and I'm so grateful for their willingness to share and to help us get an insight on how we can help our child to feel loved, and then how we can overcome trauma by changing our view of self and by chasing healthy sexuality. Welcome to the True Connections Recovery Podcast. My name is Brigham Elton. I am a pornography and sexual addiction counselor. The purpose of this podcast is to help others overcome the appeal of pornography, sexual abuse, and sexual fear by chasing healthy sexuality. I'm so grateful that you've chosen to be here with us today and join us in the chase of a healthy sexual mindset and actions. Okay, I just want you guys to know how grateful I am for each of the people who choose to come in here, it's not easy to share a story like this. Coming out of hiding is hard. And even though there's some anonymity, it still is hard to come in here's my soul a little bit, hear from me. And so I really appreciate the openness that you choose to have, and I'm really grateful, First off, I just want to start with a baseline of who you are. So let's start with what's your family situation, what do you do for fun? And today we have a mother and a son together. So go ahead.
Hi, I'm a mother of 4 kids.
Okay.
Ages 15 down to 6.
Okay.
And I love to bike.
Cool.
And bake cookies.
Oh, what a great mix. And where primarily did you grow up?
Born in Idaho, but mostly raised in Utah.
Okay. Cool. Awesome.
I'm the son, and I'm a sophomore in high school.
Cool.
And I like to mountain bike and play sports.
Cool. That's awesome. Good for you. Nice. And you've lived most of your life here in Utah, obviously, because you're with your mom.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you. The first thing I want to talk about today is first exposure to pornography and sex. I think it's helpful for, parents and those who struggle to just see how other people are running into it, Do you remember the first time that you ran into pornography?
Yeah. There was this kid at my school who pulled me aside in the hallway, and he's like, "Hey, you should see this," and then showed me a pornographic picture. And I was like, "That's not cool, man. You shouldn't be looking at that," and walked away, but it was still in my head.
Totally. And do you have a ballpark of how old you think you were?
I think I was probably about 12.
Okay. It's 6th grade-ish?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, no, I think 7th grade, so probably 13.
Okay. Okay, yeah. And then how long did that linger in your head?
Just I don't know, for a couple months actually.
Really? Until eventually, did you eventually go seeking it, or
Yeah.
Okay. And how did you seek it? And what device and where, when, I guess?
I think I was home alone.
Okay.
And I got on the computer, and I was like, it came to my mind, right? And I was like,
yeah, you remember that old picture?
Yeah, and I don't know, I was curious, and so I looked it up, and of course, the internet has lots of stuff there.
Yeah, totally. And then all of a sudden you're it's probably overloading you,
Yeah.
You went for a drink, and all of a sudden it's just like a fire hose of all this information overcoming you.
Yeah.
Do you remember the torn feelings between this is bad and this feels good? Do you remember? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I think my first reaction was just a whoa.
Yeah.
Taken aback. And then my second thought was, uh-oh, that's probably not good. And then my third thought was, this kind of makes me feel good. And then I felt guilty about feeling good. And so the conflict started and just kept growing and growing and growing.
Totally. And did how often were you thinking about it after that first time going looking for it?
I think I thought about the actual thing. I searched up probably more once, twice a week, but the guilt of what I've done, I thought about probably like 4 or 5 times a day.
Wow. And so was that shifting the way that you saw yourself?
Definitely.
Can you tell me about that? Like, what were some of your, like, self-definement thoughts?
I think it just made me feel like you're not, I guess you're not quite the person you should be, or you're not worthy, or something like that.
Totally. Wow, so hard. And you carried that for how long before you, like, talked to someone about it?
Probably, I think a year.
Wow.
Almost, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And how, like, over this year or so, like, how was your view of sex shifted?
I think I started to view it as more of a, well, from the, like, I started to view it kind of the way that the people who made the porn wanted me to think of it. Whereas, like, I guess it made me feel like it was only for, like, recreation or just for fun, which is, just totally not true. But I started to feel that way a little bit, and then I guess it started to, I don't know, scare me a little bit.
Totally. So can you tell me about the first time you, like, talked with an adult about this? Like, who was it? Did you come forward? Did they catch you? Like, what was that kind of like?
I think I was talking with, well, so I think my parents had caught me with porn,
Okay.
and then I decided to come out with all of it.
Okay.
I just laid it out on the table, like, here are the things that I'm struggling with, and I don't know, which doesn't really come naturally to me because I'm so used to hiding and just not completely sharing my feelings that it just was really hard, but I was able to do it, and I'm so grateful I was able to, because they helped me see that my choices were bad, yes, but that doesn't make me a bad person.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, that's so awesome. Like, when you, like, chose to come out and you found this, like, yeah, I have done this thing that I feel guilty for, but I'm not my mistake. Like, I'm not a bad person. Like, what an awesome way to walk away from that conversation. You mentioned in that point that all of it came out. Like, what do you mean by all of it came out?
Well, I told them about my recent porn use, and then I told them about how I was sexually abused by a friend, and that kind of shocked them, to say the least, but they took it rather well, considering that they could have yelled at me or just gone mad, but they didn't, and they were supportive in my road to success.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, what a hard moment for a parent. You know, to go in with this, like, I know this thing is happening, we're here to help you, and then to find out that, like, a nightmare for a parent has happened to your child.
Exactly.
Can you tell
A
me
nightmare
kind of
is
about
exactly how I would describe it.
Yeah.
So I had caught that he was using porn on his computer. And so we had brought him in after we'd put the other kids to bed, brought him in our room to talk about it. And, you know, I thought we were going to be talking about porn use. And then it turned out that it was a lot more than that. That unfortunately, his friend had sexually abused him. And that...
Can I pause you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but like, somehow you created an environment that he felt safe enough to come forward. So in a moment of confrontation where you're confronting him about something, he felt so safe that he came forward about a real deep struggle that people sometimes take years to come forward with, you know?
That's true, yeah.
And somehow that environment created. Can you remember about how you and your partner created this environment of safety through confrontation?
So, me and my husband talked for just a quick second before we had brought him in the room, and we just needed to say, this is all about love. And so we just tried to, say, you're not in trouble. We're not angry, but we just want to understand so that we can get you the help that you need to turn this around. And it was hard. I would say it felt like we were pulling stuff out of him. But it was through love, just saying, this is your chance to just get it all out on the table so that you can feel better, that you're not having to hide this or feel that guilt. Just get it out. Just lay it out in front of us. And then we can take it piece by piece and heal.
Yeah. So how did you emotionally process this? I mean, you probably emotionally have processed this porn stuff a little preparatory to this conversation. But as this stuff was coming out, how were you managing yourself so that you could be there for him and not have it become about you?
Honestly, I feel like it was a huge blessing from God that he gave me the strength I needed to get through that conversation. Because it wasn't easy. Yeah. Hearing your little boy has been involved in things that you had no idea were happening. It was hard. It was really hard. But I was in shock, for one. And I think having to emotionally process through it in the days and weeks ahead was really challenging. But gratefully I could do that mostly in my room. Yeah. And, be able to be there. Hopefully I was there for him to try to be there for his needs.
Yeah. So what messages did you feel like you left that conversation with? You went into this conversation, obviously more came out than was anticipated when you walk into your parents' room at night. You think maybe I'm getting checked on for grades or who knows what, And all of this comes out. But you go back to your room and what are you leading that conversation with?
Well, honestly, I started just feeling happy I was able to tell somebody about it. And just the huge weight off of my shoulders. Yeah. And
you have a team now. It's not just you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess after that I was a little worried about my parents, how they were gonna take it and what they were gonna do with that information.
Totally. And that fear came back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And were you sharing it again, or did you go back to secrecy?
No, I tried to stay really open.
Yeah.
And I think the best way that they could have taken it was the way they took it. So that's it's been super helpful to see that they aren't necessarily ashamed of me, but they were disappointed in me and in the fact that I hadn't told them. But
that you hadn't told them.
Yeah. But I definitely felt that they were never extremely angry at me, or I guess never really completely blaming me for me, for my problem, or
the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. We don't film these, obviously, but just as a side note that I get to watch, it's been cute to watch your guys' little glances of love as you recall this situation, it's so obvious how loved you felt, and it's so obvious how loved you were, as you guys keep doing these, oh, I didn't know exactly you thought that, I feel loved again. It's you've gone back and felt that investment, in a moment of such raw, exposed vulnerability. You felt loved, Can you tell me about, post this conversation, Boston goes back to his room. There were tears, tissues, you got a pile somewhere,
Oh, yes.
That conversation that you have with your husband after. Can you talk to me about that?
Oh, like I said, we were in shock. So it was just kind of a lot of disbelief at first, and just trying to reprocess, what the conversation we just had was.
Yeah.
And I think for both of us, it was just, what can we do to help him? It was just, we just felt an immense amount of love for him, which was interesting because, I would see myself feeling angry and upset, but honestly, it was all love, just wanting to help him and help him in his journey to heal. I mean, that's really all our conversations were, is just how can we help?
That's amazing. Because sometimes that, shock of getting new information can sometimes come off as, hurt, and then hurt kind of turns into a little angry.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that there was this, communion of love, though we went through a very shocking moment, Mm-hmm. At this time, how are you, I guess previous to it coming out to your parents, what was your current view, how are you viewing yourself when you were struggling on your own with the sexual abuse, reprocessing, and pornography struggles?
I think I considered myself kind of, well, I guess I wasn't my favorite person, to say the least, but I just did not feel any sort of connection, I guess, with anyone around me. I felt very disconnected and I wouldn't say depressed, but very, very down on myself. And then I felt the pressure of trying to conceal those emotions and just put up all these masks and basically make it almost impossible for anyone to tell what I'm going through just by being around me.
And I think a lot of us do that, right? We start to put up these masks to protect ourselves. And not only do we protect ourselves from people's judgment, but we start protecting ourselves from people's love. And it's hard for them to love you because when someone expresses love to you, you're going, they don't really love me, they love my mask. And it's so healing to take those masks down, to let people see our struggle, whether it's the struggle of a parent processing something that's really difficult, or the struggle of a kid who's struggling, and how much that allows you to feel loved. So you're here, you've learned all this shocking information, right? And now it's what do we do? And how can we scaffold this kid to healing? Where did you start seeking that help?
I really feel like we didn't know where to go, what to do, how to get help.
Yeah.
Because it's not like I can ask my girlfriends, hey, where should I take my son for being sexually abused and having pornography addictions?
Yeah.
That's not really something people talk about.
Totally.
Well, and especially I don't want to, this is his journey, and I don't want to put it in front of people.
Totally.
That's a personal journey. So we started with going to the bishop. I was hoping for kind of some direction and some counseling there. And our loving bishop, did his best, but he's not a professional in this area.
Totally.
So we worked with him, and we just tried to do what we could. We tried to have him only have the computer where everyone can see, and only use it when we know, and
Became kind of boundary pornography focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But.
And how was that going for you when there was this boundary pornography focus and meeting with the bishop? How was that affecting you and your view of self and all that?
I think I came to view myself more as a project rather than a person.
Yeah.
I kind of saw myself as I'm trying to fix these things about myself, and that's all that I can really do right now.
And did that go to like something's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just I guess while we were going through all that, just trying to find help and the boundaries especially kind of made me feel trapped in my own like domain or house or
whatever they would let you have, but you felt kind of controlled. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And so then from the bishop, where does that kind of grow into?
So this was in April.
Okay.
And so, we went for months doing this kind of stuff. But then, he'd have some relapses. We'd catch him, with either pornography, or I don't know if I want to say that.
Masturbation?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have to say it.
But, oh, sorry, bad memories. And I will say, that love and that calm that we initially started with, it got harder as we would move forward and we thought we were making progress, and then we would see the relapse. And I wish I would have been more patient and loving through those relapses.
Totally.
Because I felt betrayed and hurt. And so, yes, that anger came.
Yeah.
And that was really hard because it felt like a personal attack when we would find him using pornography again or masturbating because, we had been trying so hard to help him and it just felt like a personal attack. But looking back, I wish I would have had more love and understanding that relapses happen, that struggles happen, and just to be there and help him along.
And it's hard because, like, when you get these two issues, my kid has been sexually abused and was in a relationship of sexual abuse, and my kid is struggling with pornography. This pornography one, you have way more resources, and people are actually talking about that, and, like, this is the problem that you think, oh, I can fix this, But it really is a symptom of this bigger issue,
Exactly.
And we started trying to treat this, and it wasn't really working because below that was this, like, relationship of sexual abuse that skewed more than porn. Like, sure, porn skews people's view of sex and self, but nothing like this relationship of sexual abuse, right? And so, like, as we're trying to fix this moment, and it's not working because the core issue really hasn't been worked on, I can imagine how frustrating that would be.
Yes, absolutely. And I just don't think we understood the extent of that sexual abuse and what he had been through. Totally. I just don't think we even had an idea.
And how could you? Like, I have so much empathy for a parent in your situation. Like, how would you know what to do? Like, I understand that feeling of I'm trying, but we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. And how lost you guys must have felt.
Very lost. Very, very lost. Yeah. So we got to a point that we had just gotten so frustrated. And I was like, we've got to do more. This isn't working. What we're doing isn't working. We have to do something more. And I had thought back to a free class that you had given. I think it was your very first one in doTERRA
Yeah,
building.
That was a long time ago. Yeah.
So I had thought about that, and I was like, I got to find out what that guy's name was. and see if he's still around, see if he does anything, with this. And so I think I had found an old email or something.
Wow.
And, just called and reached out and said, this is what we're going through. Is it something you do? Do you do counseling? Do you do therapy? I don't even know.
Yeah. I remember this call.
Yeah, I'm sure that was pretty funny.
Yeah. You're like, do you do this? Yeah, that's my job.
Oh, good. But, and just getting him on board, asking him, do you want this help? We are willing to pay for it and do it, but you've got to be willing to, it's got to be your choice.
Got to invest.
But I can't, I remember that first day after we came, we left the office and Boston's like, I feel happy.
Oh, talk about that. I was going to ask you about, the first time you came here, because it was, she initiated it, you know? And so the first time you come here, what is going on in your brain?
Well, I didn't know what to expect exactly. I'm like, I'm going inside. I'm going to go see this guy named Brigham, and we're going to see how it goes. But I was a little nervous, I guess, and coming in, I don't know, didn't feel completely and totally attacked, so it was okay by me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't particularly remember what we did the first time, but we just, I think we just got to know each other, but I guess it made me feel a little bit of hope and, I guess, a need to push for a better future.
Totally. That's so awesome. You know, and like when we first start coming here, one of our main things is like, let's start chasing healthy or godlike sexual intimacy, right? And a godlike or healthy view of sex, you know? When I started introducing that idea to you of like, we're going to chase healthy, godlike sex, what did your brain think about?
I was like, I didn't know God had a view of sex.
Yeah.
I had honestly never thought of that before, but it was such a cool thing to be able to think about that kind of thing while I'm searching the scriptures or conference talks and just praying and asking questions and finding answers, and it became sort of a cool connection to have with God.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never heard that phrase before, but like, what a cool connection to have with God, you know? That like we can have sex and he's also a sexual creature, you know? And like, that's something that we share with him, you know? This ability to create and connect. Yeah, that's awesome. Our focus at the beginning is really this like mental shift, right? Like choosing to think about sex in a healthy way whenever we run into prompts or whatever, whenever like something pops back up in our head, right? Can you tell me about like that process of dealing with the moment, right? Like you get a prompt. Can you give me an example of a prompt that you run into at your age?
Just like probably someone dressed inappropriately.
Okay.
Or
So someone like dressed that's arousing.
yeah.
Okay, cool. And like probably a typical thought for a normal teenager is like, oh, she's hot, or like they're hot, or I shouldn't look at that, or whatever. But
Yeah.
tell me how you kind of process those moments now.
Now it's like, well, I guess it started out as like my first mental reaction would go to I shouldn't, and then when we started working on shouldn'ts, and shouldn'ts are, and shoulds even, are put into our head by other people, and so we need to replace shouldn't with want. I don't want to do that, or I want to do that. And so I'd start changing my view from I shouldn't look at that to I don't really want to think about that or look at that right now.
Yeah.
And then
How did that make you feel to shift from shouldn't to want?
I think it made it more personal. It was my decision. It wasn't anyone else's decision. No one else's pressure to be a certain thing or person.
A certain way.
I was choosing who I wanted to be.
Oh, cool.
And then I started then we switched from, well, not switched, but we take that want or the I don't want to calling it what it is. That's arousing. That's fake. That's anything, really.
Yeah.
Just
That's someone else. That's
Yeah.
not mine. That's one-sided.
definitely.
Yeah.
And then
And as you mentally do the that's, like, how does that affect you, I guess?
it kind of distances the prompt or whatever from you, and it's putting it on something else.
Yeah.
And then you want to turn around and think of something that's uplifting or happy, or like healthy intimacy is godlike, or healthy intimacy is true connection.
Yeah. And as you do that phase, like, how does that affect your relationship with that prompt in that moment?
It almost changes a loss to a win, basically.
Yeah, that's amazing. And as you did that over and over and over again, how did your relationship with sex change?
I think I viewed it more as something that I can personally choose rather than something that's just out there in the world being used recreationally, and it's just whatever.
Yeah, and it's controlling you instead of you choosing.
Definitely.
Yeah. Wow. How empowering to know, just be like, look, I can choose. You know.
Yeah.
As you watched us go through these first few weeks and focusing on a healthy view of intimacy, what changes did you notice about him?
Well, earlier when he said, he didn't really feel connection, that was huge. Like, I even, somewhere in these teenage years, I had said, like, were you sexually abused? Like, I came out and said that because he wouldn't let me touch him like he used to. He wouldn't connect with his siblings. Like, it was just not my same Boston. Oh,
Totally.
shoot. It was not my same son.
Yeah.
And,
Sorry.
And so after those first few weeks of doing therapy, I saw him playing a game with his siblings on the floor. And I just wanted to cry. I was like, that's my son.
Yeah.
He's coming back.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was happening.
And there was another time he was reading a book to his little sister, and they were just giggling and laughing. And once again, I just wanted to cry because I felt like my son had returned. He was connecting with people again in a real way.
Totally. Oh, it's so amazing. Like, this is so freeing, to like have this weight that you had start to be shifted, and start to be released. Yeah, good for you. So this starts changing, and then probably 4 weeks in, you choose to tell me about being sexually abused. Why did you choose to tell me?
Well, I think the main reason was just I felt like I needed to get it out again just to set the baseline of what we're working with so we can actually do something with it.
Yeah.
And I felt like I needed to go through it again mentally.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, I just, like, you said earlier how I was probably processing through it alone, and I was, but it also felt like I kind of just put a pin in it or stored it away in my mind in some distant filing cabinet I'll get to someday.
Yeah.
But I think I felt I needed to bring it back into my brain and into my soul and just kind of go through the emotions, see what I was going through and try and get a hold of what it meant.
And reprocess, right? Like, you left that moment, and most people leave these traumatic moments with some false beliefs, that I'm not worthy, like, I deserve this was my fault, I'm to blame, right? Like, all of these kind of thoughts. And to bring them to the light and to shine a light on them, it's, like, glaringly obvious that, like, what? This is not my fault, Like, I am not to blame. I have so much worth, right? And, like, pretty quickly, we can reprocess a moment like that. You know? And start to see it differently. So as we started talking more about the, like, relationship of sexual abuse and the way you viewed yourself, can you talk to me about that change? Right? We talked about your view of sex change. Let's talk about your view of self change.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I started just kind of feeling unworthy, or like I blamed myself for this problem, and as we worked through it, I started to see myself as someone, not necessarily as the person who was to blame, but the victim, and to kind of see how everything kind of connected, and like you said, when you shine a light on it, it just became clear that like this was not like something that I needed to have on my conscience for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I could move on.
Oh, good for you. That's so awesome. You know, what a healing time. Yeah. Well, again, I just appreciate so much you sharing all this, you know, and you like letting us into that side of a struggle that a lot of us aren't aware of until all of a sudden it slaps us in the face, you know. I'm curious what advice you would give to someone who's in the struggle, you know, who's whether if they're struggling with pornography or they have like they're alone in this relationship of sexual abuse and they don't know how to tell someone about it. Like, what advice would you give?
To someone who's using pornography, I'd probably just say, tell somebody. That's the one thing you can do that'll make you feel so much better, so much better. And to be able to share that weight with someone you trust, it'll not only grow your relationship with them, but it'll make you feel more validated about yourself, and you can find ways to stop it and to move on with life.
Totally. It's awesome.
And then with someone who's been or being sexually abused, you're not alone. There are plenty of us out there. Not all of us want to talk about it, but we're here, and there's always someone who can help you. And again, just tell somebody, someone you trust. If there isn't anyone you trust, find a professional, someone who can do it like it's their job to do and deal with it. Just go talk to them and just be honest with yourself and with them, and to be able to let it all out will feel amazing, and you'll be able to work through it and again move on with your life.
Good for you. Thank you. Appreciate that. It's a great advice. What advice would you give to a parent who like is either learning of this or like is going to like maybe he found their kid's internet history and is now going to this moment of confrontation? Like what advice would you give to them?
I would say, holy cow, teenagers go through a lot. And it's hard not to respond in anger or frustration, but you've got to respond in love and concern. You know, don't wipe it away like it's nothing, but you know, they need to understand their choices, but you need to be their safe place to talk about it and to work through things and heal.
It's amazing when a kid can actually like talk about it, how instead of it being like I am my porn use or I am my sexual abuse, but like this is a part of me and I am this person my mother loves or my father loves, you know? And they're able to separate those things just from a conversation with a parent who sees them with these eyes of love.
Yes.
You know? Yeah, awesome. Good?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a parent who's about to go and talk to a kid about something like this?
I think that the most important thing is love. You have to go about it in a way that's not, you know, all angry and up in your face. You wanna go in with the intention of just finding out what's happening, and you can deal with whatever you're going to do with that information later, but just find out what's happening.
Yeah.
Get the whole thing out on the table, and if you know, like if they know that you're there to listen, then I think they'll be able to tell you.
It's amazing. You know, this is a consistent thing we hear from strugglers in their advice to parents is like, don't try to fix it, don't try to make it better, just ask me questions about it. Like how it happened, like how I got here, why I choose to use, like how I feel about it, do I want to, like those kind of questions, and letting me talk helps me feel loved and like you want to understand me instead of like I'm a project that needs to be fixed.
Definitely.
Again, I appreciate you guys so much, especially like how brave it is for a sophomore in high school to be like, this happened to me, especially a male. You know, like, I'm proud of you. Like, that's so amazing. And you're helping so many people. I hope you feel that, you know? Yeah, thanks again for being here. We really appreciate it. And we're grateful for your hope that you share for others.
Thanks, Brigham.
Yep. I'm so grateful for you listening with us today. Please share. I think that we succeed as a community, and as you share this with those around you, I think that not only helps them, but it also helps you to chase healthy sexuality. Thanks again.